You know, I've been on YouTube for over a decade, for 12 years. That's like an entire cycle of the Chinese animal years. That's only 1 year less than YouTube's been in existence. Now, recently I got one of my videos flagged from years back. I'll come back to that in due course. But it did get me to flick back through all of my back catalogue and see what category YouTube had put these videos into. And boy, have they been busy. Now, some of this was unremarkable. Other aspects were stunning, particularly in what YouTube had demonetized. So, just for laughs, I went back and collated the data on a bi-yearly basis, just to get an overview of what had happened. Now, firstly, let's deal with the total number of videos made, which, as you can see, has steadily increased over the years. Although you've got to bear in mind that when YouTube first came on the scene, there was a 10-minute limit for uploads. So if you were to translate this into total number of video minutes made, it would be even more of an increase. Not only was there a 10-minute time limit on the videos, no one in those early days could make money off YouTube. Even if you tried, you would get called an e-beggar, like you'd just eaten someone's baby or defiled their grandmother or something.
You have stooped to a new pathetic low, Thunderfoot. You already lost the respect of intellectuals in the atheist community. You already lost their respect. But now you don't even have any fucking dignity. I don't even know how you can sleep at night. You must feel so fucking dirty.
So it turns out that I was actually making videos for about 5 years on YouTube without making a single penny. And, you know, looking back, there is a certain satisfaction that comes with that. Although it must be said that if you're making money at the same time, it's a lot more rewarding. Now let's take a look at the views over the same period. One of the reasons I put this in here is just so I can highlight all those times that people have been told that this is the end for my channel. My channel's finished, it's over. Which has basically been always. There's always some guy who disagrees with something contentious I've said, and this is always the declaration that they come up with, that it's all over for Thunderfoot. Yeah, read it and weep, bitches. You know, Thunderfoot criticizes the Iraq War. It's all over for Thunderfoot. Thunderfoot criticizes Islam. It's all over for this Islamophobe. Christ haters, libertarians, Brexiteers, feminists, Sarah Palin supporters, social justice warriors, global warming deniers, Muskophiles, skeptics, and so on. You always piss someone off, and I always get it that it's over for Thunderfoot. As you can probably tell, a decade or so later on, I'm getting kind of eye-rollingly numb to it by now, to the point where it is kind of funny. But hell, even if they were entirely right, and I was forced to go back to career academia, yeah, that would fix me good, it wouldn't actually do anything to prove that their argument was correct. But whatever, those are just the slings and arrows that are the wallpaper for this forum. So while going through this, I want to show you the progression. You see, when YouTube was first up, there were no automated copyright filters. This was before Google actually purchased YouTube. So quite a lot of my early work borrowed things like music tracks and that sort of thing rather heavily. So years later, when the copyright filters come fully online and go through all the backlog, a lot of this stuff gets copyright restricted. Some of it very legitimately, and that's fair enough. Others were bullshit. Interestingly, there's been a hell of a change over that last decade of people's attitude to copyrighted work on YouTube. I mean, I still remember the first big DMCA cases on YouTube. That's the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, where at the time it really did look like this would be the end for YouTube, with big companies like Viacom squaring off against the much smaller at the time YouTube. There was this real worry that big companies would bully people with their size and overreach of the DMCA, and this would basically crush creative forums like YouTube. And at its apex, there were real lawsuits flying around over things as trivial as someone videoing their baby while there was 31 seconds of a Prince song playing on the radio in the background. Then along came things like Gangnam Style. And these same companies realised that fighting tooth and nail to keep someone's work like Britney Spears off of a social platform like YouTube unless of course they paid something, was just limiting their visibility. They were shooting themselves in the foot. They were engaging in unpopular and costly lawsuits, and that just made them look like jerks and limited the social footprints of the artists they were meant to be popularizing. And before you could say knife, those self-same companies that had been desperately trying to keep their stuff off YouTube, like Viacom, who actually later turned out had actually sent their employees to upload stuff from cyber cafes. I mean, seriously, this is from the actual lawsuit between YouTube and Viacom. For years, Viacom continuously and secretly uploaded its content to YouTube, even while publicly complaining about its presence there. It hired no fewer than 18 different marketing agencies to upload its content to the site. It deliberately roughed up the video to make it look like they were stolen or leaked. It opened up YouTube accounts using phony email addresses. It even sent employees to Kinko's to upload videos from computers that couldn't be traced to Viacom. And in an effort to promote its own shows, as a matter of company policy, Viacom routinely left up clips of shows that had been uploaded to YouTube by ordinary users. Executives as high as the president of Comedy Central and the head of MTV Networks felt very strongly that clips from shows like The Daily Show and The Colbert Report should remain on YouTube. Viacom's efforts to disguise its promotional use of YouTube worked so well that even its own employees couldn't keep track of everything it was posting or leaving up on the site. As a result, on countless occasions, Viacom demanded the removal of clips that had been uploaded to YouTube, only to return later to sheepishly ask for their reinstatement. In fact, some of the very clips that Viacom is suing us over were actually uploaded by Viacom itself. Chief Counsel, YouTube. Yeah. By the time all this had worked itself out, people like The Daily Show were queuing up to get their own YouTube channels. Nowadays, the day minimalistic cutoff, or whatever it's called, the minimum amount that the copyright filters will look for seems to be about 15 seconds, which still seems kind of harsh when you consider that the Lens vs. Universal was one of the most officious lawsuits ever, and that was over 31 seconds, and that ended up with a ruling that it wasn't that the music was allowed under fair use, it's that it was never copyright infringement in the first place. Basically, people trying to keep their work off public platforms mostly seems to be a way of limiting the number of people who can see their work. Plus, million-dollar lawsuits over 30 seconds of background radio don't exactly endear you to the public. Now, also, I've seen the EU making noises about similar sorts of things and moving towards it. And what they've done so far does seem like the sort of laws you would get from someone who thinks that the internet is a series of tubes. Yeah, those are probably not the people you want making the laws for the internet police. But even if that does make it into law, I've got doubts about its utility. I mean, even if companies can stop you from sharing their stuff, and yeah, you got to be honest here, there are actually some legitimate points to be had there, just like there were some legitimate arguments about copyright. But ultimately, if they manage to stop people from sharing their stuff, they're just going to become the Viacom of this decade. It's as simple as this. In an attention-based economy, such as the internet, limiting your visibility is really not something that any sane company should be trying to do. So, some of my earlier videos you probably argue legitimately were copyright infringements. And they have some restrictions on them and, yeah, whatever, fair dues. But that's mostly over a decade ago now, and that's really sort of petered off. However, there are also videos that you really couldn't make a sensible argument are infringing people's copyright, but have been hit by copyright notifications anyway. And those really haven't died off, and I've long since given up track of counting how many DMCAs over the years I've fought and won. And those aren't included in these numbers. But God, those DMCAs stressful to deal with. Now, when I first started using YouTube, you absolutely couldn't make money off it at all. No adverts, no nothing. Indeed, I remember when ads first started running on YouTube, they distinctly had this vibe that they wanted to move towards the family-friendly internet TVs type thing. And they did start kicking people to the curb for this sort of thing, kicking people out of the partner program, that sort of thing. However, that wasn't me. I wasn't even in the partner program. For years, I resisted this, not entirely for virtuous reasons. For instance, if someone's going to try and sue you over copyright, and there are always real concerns that these people who you're critical of are going to abuse the copyright laws to basically make your life difficult, it makes it a damn sight harder for them to sue you if you're not actually making any money off it. And you've got to bear in mind, this was actually at a period where there were million-dollar lawsuits flying around for trivial copyright infringements. In terms of risk, it was a very different environment to what you have on YouTube today. On the flip side, of course, I knew that YouTube would be promoting the stuff that made them money, because YouTube is a company and that's what companies do. So there were also legitimate arguments to try and get in. But I also kind of like the idea that, when I first started doing this, you couldn't make money off it. And this is a sort of universal thing that you get on YouTube. It's one of the easiest ways to attack someone and dismiss their arguments is the conflict of interest, that you're only doing this for the money. I mean, geez, if I had $1 for every time someone said during the Brexit thing that I was only doing this because I wanted to keep my EU grants, the fact that I didn't have any EU grants didn't seem to bother them. Or even if I did, that I would only lose them if I was actually working in the UK, which I wasn't. Basically, the argument was wrong on every level, but it was still one of the more common arguments that I saw. And just to prove the point, this is just some random tweet I put out the other day about Brexit, and sure enough, someone comes up and says, I'm doing it because I want to keep EU grants. If you're not making any money off it, people can't accuse you of doing it for the money. And, I've been doing it for 5 years on principle, and that really was going to be something that you lost when you signed on to the YouTube partner thing. Now, of course, YouTube is a completely different place. It's expected that people make money off the videos they produce, to the point where if someone comes up to you and accuses you of trying to make money off YouTube, it's like, yeah, that's kind of the norm on YouTube. So it was shortly after 2010 that I actually joined the YouTube Partner Program and very cautiously started putting ads on the videos, only to find out that the money that it brought in was pretty farcical. However, as time went on, more and more videos got adverts on them, and the money became more and more respectable. Not something you could live on, but still very welcome. And now, up to this point, if you actually asked for money for people, that would make you an absolute pariah. You would be called an e-beggar, and woe betide anyone who did it.
Thunderfoot has stooped to an all-time low. He has stooped to a low that I never thought he would stoop to. Not in my wildest dreams.
However, that all changed very rapidly in 2013 when Patreon came along and gave the whole thing an air of credibility. And that utterly transformed my position. I mean, up to this point, I'd been subsidizing all of this off the back of a postdoc salary, which is pretty modest. And that completely flipped to the point where I was now making more money off YouTube. And so I did what any decent scientist would do. I started looking for ways in which I could turn that money into something useful. I got things like high-speed cameras, thermal cameras, spectrometers, glass blowing equipment, telescopes and such like. To the point now where I've got so much scientific kit that it, in terms of the sheer versatility of what I can do, outclasses most of the scientific labs that I've ever worked in. So I can tackle those great unknown questions like, why is it that a kettle makes more noise before it boils? Or what exactly does happen if you pour molten gold onto a potato? And though you might laugh, I've actually had high school teachers come up to me and tell me that they use these videos in their classes because they're actually quite informative and make learning about things that you would usually think are boring as hell, like specific heat capacities, simple and most importantly, fun. Yeah, this is all stuff I couldn't dreamed of doing, not even in my wildest fantasies in those early years on YouTube. Yeah, it was as simple as that. I didn't have the resources to do it. Now, not only is that kit being used to make some videos, it's also being used to contribute to some real scientific research. In fact, there are now at least 2 papers. These are real scientific papers in the literature. One in Nature Chemistry, the other in Angewandte Chemie. Pretty prestigious journals on the grand scheme of things that acknowledge this contribution from YouTube in the actual paper. And they're not going to be the last either. We've got another top shelf paper coming out this year, which will also acknowledge this. So yeah, in terms of the support that I get from you guys, I really can't thank you enough. YouTube, however, that can get pretty depressing at times. When videos that consist of nothing more than heating a piece of platinum up to white heat get demonetized for seemingly no reason. In fact, for the last year, I reckon that over half of the videos would have been demonetized as a matter of course. Honestly, seems kinda odd seeing some of the stuff that YouTube has happily monetized. I mean, really, when did white hot metal or dissolving sodium in ammonia or looking at the eyes of a fossil trilobite come the line for when something is not suitable for advertisers? And that's the last line, the purple line, demonetized for bullshit reasons. And the only reason it dips down like that in the last year is because virtually everything that was demonetized, I actually contested that, which, like I was saying, was almost everything. However, YouTube's demonetization bot has been very busy on the backlog, demonetizing almost half of the videos there. So that basically gives you a pristine data set to see what was demonetized and what wasn't. And that's what I'm going to go over in the next video. The entire backlog of my videos to see what was demonetized. You know, is it the feminist videos or the creationist videos, the Islam videos or the right-wing videos? And I'll give you the spoilers for those who don't want to watch the whole video. There really isn't that much of a pattern, as you might have been getting the feel of when you're demonetizing things like looking at a fossil trilobite's eyes. But for those who are interested, that's basically what the next video is going to be. It's just going to be looking over the last 12 years of videos on this channel. So, many thanks for watching, and if you like this stuff, you can support it directly on Patreon. And I won't be adding this video to the Patreon supported feed because reasons, but I'm always happy to have your support. Oh, and for those who are interested, I've ordered the mass spectrometer, which I'm going to use to debunk almost every bullshit diet on the planet. Plus, I figure it's going to be interesting to see the chemistry of the human metabolism running in real time.